Dante didn't move. He couldn't. He watched Sophia running for her life. The rain was coming down like bullets now. Sophia was soaked through, the black uniform clinging to her skin. Her hair was matted to her face, but her eyes, they were burning with a desperate, animal focus. She hit the street corner too fast. Behind her, the black SUV didn't slow down. It jumped the curb. Dante knew the man driving. It was Marco from the Ferraro family. Marco wasn't here to talk. He was here to end it. Dante's calm, expensive suit was useless now. His cover was blown. He reached inside his jacket. His hand wrapped around the cold, familiar weight of the piece. Rico. Dante barked into the mic hidden in his cufflink. Now. Cut the power to the intersection. Sophia stumbled. She went down hard onto the slick cobblestones. The fall cost her 2 seconds. 2 seconds too many. The black SUV screeched, closing the distance. Marco didn't even bother aiming the vehicle. He aimed the gun out the window. Dante saw the flash of the barrel. He saw Sophia try to scramble back up. This is it, Dante thought. I waited too long. He broke through the kitchen door, shouting her name. Sophia. Roll. The sound of the shot wasn't loud. It was sharp. It cut through the heavy rain. Sophia didn't roll. She froze, looking straight at Dante, her boss, the quiet man from table 7. Her face wasn't shocked by the bullet. It was shocked by him. By the raw danger pouring off him. The bullet missed her, cracking the stone wall exactly where her head had been a second before. Dante didn't wait for the second shot. He launched himself off the steps. He was moving too fast for a man in a $3,000 suit. His hand never left the gun. He knew this moment, the point of no return. He had promised himself he would only watch her. He promised he wouldn't interfere. But now, she was running, crying, bleeding slightly from the fall, and 2 seconds away from being killed by his rivals. All because of a secret he hadn't uncovered yet. Dante reached her, not to console her, but to pull her violently behind a heavy stone fountain. Keep your head down, he commanded, his voice a dangerous whisper. She looked up at him. Who are you? She asked, not with fear, but with a sudden, deep understanding of who he really was. He pressed the gun into her hand. Not the smooth grip, but the cold metal barrel. He didn't answer her question. Do you know how to use this? He asked. She didn't hesitate. Yes. Dante smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator who finally had permission to hunt. Good, he said. Because now we fight. That wasn't Dante's plan. Not at all. Just 2 weeks earlier, Dante Volpe was exactly where he wanted to be. He was at table 7, the best seat in La Stella Nas Costa, the hidden star. It was his restaurant. Every tile, every light fixture, every single employee, including the waitress named Sophia, belonged to him. But they didn't know it. Dante wasn't built for waiting tables or managing payroll. He was built for leading the Volpe syndicate. He ran the coast, the ports, and the city's hidden currency. His best friend, Rico, handled the loud, unpredictable parts. Dante handled the subtle, intelligent parts. Dante came in every day under the guise of an early dinner customer. He didn't come for the food. He came for Sophia. She was soft-spoken. She moved like smoke between tables. She had dark hair and eyes that held a story she never told. He had an empire to run, but he spent 2 hours every evening just watching her. This wasn't romance. This was obsession mixed with suspicion. He knew she was bilingual, speaking flawless Italian to the kitchen staff and switching to perfect, but heavily accented, English for the tourists. But he noticed something else. He noticed the fear. Dante was meticulous. He ran his world on data, not feelings. And the data on Sophia didn't add up to innocent Waitress. Every day, he compiled the evidence. She never took cash. If a customer insisted on paying cash, she would freeze. Her eyes would dart immediately to the clock, then to the door. She would always summon the manager, Marco, to handle the transaction. Why? Cash leaves no trace. If you're hiding, cash is your friend. Unless the person you're hiding from is looking for untraceable transactions. She hated her phone. Every time her pocket vibrated, a spasm of anxiety crossed her face. She would excuse herself, rush to the back, and checked the screen by turning her back to the wall. She was hiding the display from someone. Who? Everyone. Dante tried a test. He dropped €100 note outside his table. "Signorina," he said, using his best imitation of a polite tourist. "You dropped this." Sophia didn't even look at the bill. She looked at Dante's hands. She stared at his knuckles, looking for the telltale scarring from a life of fighting. "That's not mine," she whispered, her voice tight. She was lying. Dante could feel it. She was terrified of touching the unmarked currency. It was like poison to her. Rico, Dante's muscle and closest advisor, slid into the chair opposite Dante. Rico was less observant than Dante, but much louder. "Boss, what are we doing here?" Rico muttered, sipping water. "You're wasting time. Ferraro is making moves on the northern docks. We need a strategy." Dante didn't look up from his coffee. "I have a strategy, Rico. I am watching the most interesting chess piece in the city." "She's a waitress, Dante. A pretty one, yes. But a threat? She can barely carry 4 plates." "Look closer," Dante commanded. "Every time she cleans a table, what does she check?" Rico watched as Sophia quickly wiped down table 3. "The wine glasses? The silverware?" Rico guessed. "The fire exit sign, Rico. Every time. She checks that little green man running for the door." Dante took a slow sip of coffee. "She's not looking for a quick getaway. She's calculating the time to the getaway. Something significant every 2 to 3 paragraphs." Dante had his own sources working. He had the best hackers in the country running facial recognition on Sophia. Nothing came up. No criminal record. No passport flags. Her name, Sophia Rossi, was a ghost name. It was too clean. That's when Dante realized the truth. The reason the data was so clean was because whoever she was hiding from had the power to erase her. A high-level target. A witness. Maybe someone who stole something they can't steal back. The next night, Sophia seemed calmer. Almost relieved. She smiled at a few customers. She even laughed, a genuine, warm sound that made Dante's chest tighten unexpectedly. "You see, boss? She's fine," Rico whispered, relieved. "Just tired." Then the door opened. A man walked in. He was ordinary. Mid-50s, gray suit, slightly sweaty. He carried a bulky leather briefcase. He didn't look like a mafioso. He looked like an accountant. But Sophia saw him. Her entire body language shifted. The relief vanished. The terror came back, colder and harder than before. She dropped the dessert tray she was holding. It shattered loudly on the tiled floor. The accountant didn't react to the noise. He didn't look at the shattered plates. He looked straight at Sophia. Then he reached into his jacket. Dante Volpe finally got his answer. Sophia wasn't running from a person. She was running from a debt. And that man was here to collect. If you're enjoying this story about Dante, Sophia, and the secrets hidden beneath the surface of this fancy restaurant, hit that like button right now. It really helps us bring you more complex dramas and deep dives into the world of crime and love. The man pulled his hand from his jacket. It wasn't a gun he held. It was an envelope. A thick, cream-colored envelope, sealed with red wax. The accountant walked straight toward Sophia, ignoring the broken glass. "Sophia Rossi," the man stated, his voice dry and flat, sounding like he was reading a contract. "I am here on behalf of the Roman Bank Syndicate. We have a final accounting for you." Sophia didn't say a word. She just shook her head, tears starting to form in her eyes. Dante knew the Roman Bank Syndicate. They weren't bankers. They were debt collectors for the absolute worst people in Europe. If they were involved, Sophia was not just hiding. She was running from a lifetime sentence. Dante pushed his chair back. Time to end the game. He walked over to the accountant, who hadn't even registered the existence of the well-dressed man at table 7. "Excuse me," Dante said, placing a heavy hand on the accountant's shoulder. "She doesn't work here anymore." The accountant looked annoyed, shaking off Dante's hand. "Stay out of this, sir. This is family business." Dante chuckled. A low, dark sound that silenced the entire restaurant. "You're standing in my restaurant, touching my property, and telling me to stay out." Dante leaned in close, letting the accountant see the intensity in his eyes. I don't know what she owes, but I'm buying the debt. The accountant smirked, reaching into his briefcase. You don't have enough money, son. This debt is personal. And it comes with a choice, her life or her brother's. Dante went still. He had expected money, not family ties. She has a brother? Dante asked, the question aimed at Sophia, not the accountant. Sophia looked up, her expression a mix of shame and terror. Please, Dante, don't. The accountant's smirk grew wider. Ah. She knows your name, but she doesn't know who you are. Perfect. Tell your boss to check the contract, Mr. Volpe. The girl's name isn't Sophia Rossi. It's Elena Volkov. And she owes 5 million euros to a man who owns her brother's very breath. Dante's blood ran cold. He knew that name. Elena Volkov. But he knew the man who owned her brother even better. The accountant produced a final photograph from the briefcase. It wasn't a picture of Sophia's brother. It was a picture of Dante himself, standing with the very rival Mafia boss from the hook. The debt is to you, Mr. Volpe, the accountant said, folding the photo and placing it in Dante's hand. You just forgot you placed the order 3 years ago. Dante had let the accountant walk out. The restaurant had gone silent when the man said Elena's real name. Elena Volkov. Russian heritage. 5 million euros. Her brother's life. Dante just stood there, holding the cream-colored photograph. It showed him, Dante Volpe, shaking hands with a man named Ivan Galkin, a massive arms dealer Dante had put out of business 3 years ago. The accountant's lie was smooth. The debt wasn't to Dante. The debt was to the remnants of Gorkin's syndicate. Galkin was gone, but his debt collectors were everywhere. They used the old Volpe contracts to pressure Elena. They wanted 5 million, or they would expose Dante for his past deals. Rico moved in, cleaning the broken dishes. Boss, we're compromised. We need to move her. No, Dante said quietly, his eyes fixed on Elena. She was staring at him, her face drained of color. If we move her, she dies. Gorkin's people are watching the moves, not the spot. Dante went back to table 7. The entire game had changed. He wasn't just observing a waitress. He was guarding a liability that was suddenly the key to an old war. The next 2 days were pure, cold tension. Elena worked as if she were made of glass. Every smile was forced. Every step was tentative. She avoided Dante, serving him only when absolutely necessary, her eyes focused on his shoulder. Dante's focus wasn't on the rival families anymore. It was on one thing, why Elena's brother, Alexei, was worth 5 million euros. Rico finally brought the file. Alexei Volkov. Used to be Gorkin's tech guy. He didn't steal money, boss. He stole data. Dante stopped breathing for a second. What kind of data? Digital currency encryption keys. The codes that unlock Gorkin's frozen offshore fortune. That fortune is worth 300 million euros. 5 million is just the ransom for the key, which only Alexei knows. This wasn't a small-time debt. This was a nuclear secret. Elena wasn't a waitress. She was bait. It was Friday night again. The restaurant was packed with weekend tourists. Elena was trying to navigate the crowded room, carrying a heavy silver tray. On the tray sat 2 glasses of deep red Barolo wine, expensive and unforgiving. Dante watched her. She was moving too fast. Her gaze was locked on the floor. She was running on adrenaline and fear. A waiter from the kitchen zipped past, carrying a stack of plates. It was the slightest brush. A fraction of a second of bad timing. Elena gasped. Her arm jerked. The tray flipped. The 2 glasses of Barolo wine went airborne, then crashed down onto Dante Volpe. The dark red liquid soaked Dante's pristine white silk shirt instantly. It was a disaster. The wine looked like blood spreading across his chest. The smell of expensive tannins filled the air. A collective gasp went through the dining room. Every head turned. Elena froze. The look on her face was not just panic. It was absolute horror. She had not only ruined an expensive shirt, but she had ruined the one man who had suddenly inserted himself between her and the debt collectors. I am so sorry, sir. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Elena stammered, grabbing a thin napkin. She lunged toward him, dabbing uselessly at the massive stain. She was frantic. She didn't dare look him in the eye. Dante stood up slowly. He didn't yell. He didn't even frown. He was only thinking about what happened next. The wine had made the silk transparent. It clung to his skin. It fully exposed the intricate black artwork inked across his chest and left shoulder. The snarling Volpe wolf was unmistakable. It wasn't a casual tattoo. It was a declaration of war, etched deep into his skin. Elena saw it. Her eyes went wide. She knew about the Volpe family. Everyone in the city knew. She knew the wolf. Her fingers were still dabbing the damp fabric. She was close enough that Dante could smell the fear radiating off her. He put his hand over hers to stop the frantic dabbing. The moment their skin touched, Dante felt it. The uncontrollable, violent tremor that ran through her hand. It wasn't the shaking of a clumsy waitress scared of losing her job. It was the shaking of a soldier who just realized the battle had moved closer. "It's fine," Dante said, his voice surprisingly soft. He was talking about the stain, but his eyes were asking about her life. Rico appeared immediately, placing his large frame between Dante and the gawking diners. He was carrying a fresh black jacket. "Boss, come on. Let's clean this up," Rico urged, sliding the jacket onto Dante's shoulders. As Rico zipped the jacket up, he leaned close to Dante's ear. "Boss," Rico muttered, keeping his voice flat. "She's scared. But look at her eyes. She's not scared of you. She's scared the mess will bring them here. She's waiting for the cleanup crew to be Gorkin's thugs." Dante nodded. He had to use this moment. He had to get her alone. He looked at Elena, whose eyes were still fixed on the black wolf outline visible through the soaked silk. "Elena," Dante said, using her real name for the first time. The sound made her flinch violently. "Get the dry cleaning receipt for my staff accountant. Meet me in the private dining office in 10 minutes. I need it sorted tonight." It was a lie. The office had no accountant. It had a reinforced door, a soundproof wall, and a connection to Dante's secure satellite uplink. Elena hesitated. Going to the office with the man whose clothes she ruined was scary. Going to the office with the Mafia boss whose territory she had crashed into was terrifying. But she nodded. She knew this was the only way to avoid the next move Gorkin's people would make. She had to talk. Decision every 2 to 3 minutes. Dante walked to the back, Rico trailing him. He didn't look angry. He looked focused. "Rico, I need to know where Alexei Volkov is, tonight," Dante commanded as they entered the office. "Gorkin's network is old, but it's still organized. They won't wait for the ransom." Rico was already on the secure line. He was pulling up old intelligence files, crossing them with new satellite data. "Wait," Rico said, tapping his screen. "The debt collectors aren't Gorkin's crew, Dante. They are being financed by the Ferraro family. The ones we fought in the Hook. They're the ones who want to expose your old dealings with Galkin. They're using Elena as leverage against you." Dante's hand slammed down on the desk. This was worse than he thought. It was a direct, targeted attack. They knew Elena was hiding here. They knew Dante was interested. The accountant was sent to force Dante's hand. "They think I'm soft because I'm wearing a suit and drinking espresso," Dante sneered. "Fine. Let's show them the wolf bites." Rico got the final location data. Alexei is in a storage facility outside Florence. Heavy security. It's Gorkin's old vault. Ferraro's people are on their way there now. They aren't going to talk to Alexei. They're going to silence him before he can reveal the key is already gone. Dante knew what that meant. If Alexei was silenced, the Ferraro family could pin the entire drug operation on Dante using the old contracts. Dante looked at the clock. Elena would be walking through the door any second. He had to protect her, but he couldn't let her go to Florence, and he couldn't let Ferraro win. He needed a plan. The doorknob turned. Elena, small and pale, stepped inside. "I have the receipt, sir," she whispered, holding out a crumpled slip of paper. Dante ignored the receipt. He took a step toward her. His voice was low and serious. "We don't have time for this, Elena. You need to tell me everything about your brother. Now." Elena stood her ground. Her shoulders straightened slightly. The terror was still there, but a new spark, a spark of defiance, was burning in her eyes. "I'll tell you everything," she said. "But first, you tell me, You're the Mafia boss. What do you need with a waitress? Dante smiled coldly. He knew she had seen his tattoo. He knew she knew everything. He had no more time for games. I need you to save my life, Elena, Dante stated. Alexei didn't steal the encryption keys. You did. And now, the Ferraro family is going to kill your brother in Florence to get them from you. Dante didn't wait for an answer. He saw the truth in Elena's eyes. She had the keys. She was the one the Ferraro family really wanted. Alexei was just bait for her. The keys, Elena. Where are they? Dante demanded. Elena finally broke. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She just sagged against the closed office door. They are safe, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. No one can find them. Not Galkin. Not Ferraro. Not even you. Dante moved to the main point. Your brother is in a vault outside Florence. Ferraro's team is moving now. If they find him, they won't get the keys. They'll just make an example of him. She looked up, fear turning into pure calculation. You're protecting me, but why? I'm a criminal to you. I helped steal a fortune from your rival. You didn't steal it for yourself, Dante stated. You stole it to buy your freedom. Galkin had your family trapped. I know that game. But this isn't about Galkin anymore. It's about the Ferraro family exposing my old mistakes to the council. You are my weakness now. I need to know where Alexei is to neutralize the threat. Elena hesitated, then finally gave in. She knew she couldn't outrun a full syndicate anymore. They moved him 2 days ago, she admitted. To an old warehouse near the coast. Not Florence. They want him close. Dante cursed under his breath. The accountant had lied about the location to buy the Ferraro family time. Rico. Dante barked into his secure line. New location for Alexei Volkov. Coast Road, Old Industrial Zone. Move now. Find him, but do not engage. Get visual confirmation and wait. Dante looked back at Elena. The trembling had stopped. She was focused now. She was a professional hiding in a waitress uniform. Start from the beginning, Dante commanded. Everything about Sofia Rossi. A significant event every 2 to 3 paragraphs. Dante wasn't a man who trusted tears. He trusted documentation. While Rico's team moved on the warehouse, Dante had his hackers, the best intelligence unit in his syndicate, dig into the life of Sofia Rossi. The findings hit Dante's screen like an avalanche. The Sofia Rossi identity was flawlessly constructed. Birth certificate, employment history, utility bills. It was the work of a highly organized, professional escape team. But every single digital trail ended exactly 2 years ago. That was when Galkin had vanished. Elena's real Russian passport had been shredded and officially marked as lost at sea exactly when Gorkin's operation went dark. She was a ghost by design. The person she was running from had the power to make her disappear entirely. Every night, between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, she received a short, encrypted call. It was always less than 30 seconds. The calls were routed through 3 layers of voice masking software. Dante's team broke one layer and confirmed the language. Rapid, panicked Italian. But the voice wasn't Alexei. It was female. Dante squinted at the data. Why would she be receiving frantic calls in Italian? Elena was hiding from the Russians, but communicating with someone clearly local. Elena's waitress salary was almost nothing. Yet every month, €500 were digitally divided into 8 micropayments, routed through a complicated cryptocurrency mixer, and landed in a single, unlisted bank account in Milan. Dante immediately understood. She wasn't spending her money. She was feeding it, piece by piece, to keep someone else alive and safe. The small payments were too complex to trace easily. This wasn't a waitress sending money home. This was a spy maintaining a contact. Dante's team had followed her routine for weeks. She never took the same street twice. If she walked down Via Grande on Monday, she took the back alleys on Tuesday. She checked every mirror, every parked car. She wasn't paranoid. She was highly trained. She was performing a military-grade counter-surveillance routine. This wasn't just fear. It was discipline. Dante looked up from the screen. Elena was sitting across from him, quiet, her hands clasped tightly. She had the look of a person waiting for a sentence. Who are you talking to in Milan? Dante asked directly. Elena went rigid. She didn't expect him to know about the calls or the money. My cousin. She's studying architecture. She needs the support. The support you send through an offshore currency mixer. Dante raised an eyebrow. Lies will waste the little time we have left. Elena finally lowered her gaze. It's how I know Alexei is still alive. The money pays the one person who can check on him. The person Ferraro doesn't know exists. The cousin, Dante clarified. The architect. Yes. Dante leaned back. He watched her carefully. She was fiercely protective. She was lying, but only about the identity of the person in Milan, not the motive. Tell me about the pendant, Dante pressed. The small silver one you keep hidden in your shoe locker. Elena gasped. Her hand immediately went to her throat, even though the pendant wasn't there. It's nothing, she insisted, her voice trembling. An old piece of jewelry. The analysis says it's white gold, not silver, Dante corrected her, his tone flat. And it has a single inscription in Russian on the back. It reads, always remember. Elena's eyes flooded immediately. The tears came fast, not the quiet, manageable tears of a sad woman, but the uncontrolled, racking sobs of deep, crushing grief. Dante hated emotional noise, but this was the first time he saw the real Elena Volkov. Not the spy. Just the broken human being. She got up and rushed out of the office. Dante let her go. He knew exactly where she would hide. The staff room was empty. Elena was sitting on the floor, tucked behind a stack of clean napkins. She wasn't checking the exits anymore. She was simply weeping, her head buried in her knees. Dante stood in the doorway, watching. He felt a rare, unexpected twist of guilt. He was using her pain to get information. She looked up at him, wiping her face with the back of her hand. Then she slowly pulled something from her pocket. It was a small, slightly worn photograph. A boy. Maybe 8 years old. He had light hair and Elena's intense, dark eyes. He was grinning, holding a cheap plastic pirate sword. This is my nephew, Elena choked out, holding the photo tight. Alexei's son, Sasha. I'm sending the money to his caretaker. He's the only family I have left. Dante moved into the room, leaning against the cold wall. He knew the protocol. She was running for her nephew. A noble motive. It made her human. It made him care. Revelation cliffhanger moment. Dante pulled out his own phone and accessed Rico's final report, the one labeled Volkov family final. That is a good story, Elena, Dante said, his voice stripped of all emotion. It's a perfect story for a jury, a perfect story for a mark. Elena looked confused, her breath hitching. It's the truth. Dante held up his screen. The document was a copy of Alexei Volkov's medical file, dated 9 years ago. Alexei Volkov is a single man, Dante stated, reading the sterile medical language. He had a genetic condition that rendered him sterile at age 21. He has no son. He has no nephew named Sasha. He paused, letting the heavy truth land on her. The tears stopped. The shock was immediate and paralyzing. Who is the boy, Elena? Dante demanded, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Elena looked down at the photo in her hand, the smile of the little boy staring up at the wolf-tattooed crime boss. The boy is Alexei's brother's son. Elena tried to correct him, but the lie was dead in the water. No, Dante said, his eyes drilling into hers. Rico traced the pendant's inscription. It was a baptism gift. That boy's name is Dimitri. And he is not your nephew. He is your son. Elena Volkov was not just hiding a fortune. She was hiding a child. A child Gorkin's enemies now knew existed. A child who was suddenly the most valuable leverage in the entire €5 million war. Dante knew the Ferraro family already had their sights set on Milan. The question wasn't if they would take the boy. The question was, when? The air in the staff room was thick and cold. Dante had dropped the final, devastating truth. Elena's nephew was her son, Dimitri. Elena didn't deny it this time. She just looked at the photograph of the little boy with the pirate sword. He was 4 when I left, she whispered, her voice rough. He's 6 now. Dante didn't soften. He needed the facts. Why did you lie? Why is he in Milan? Why does the world think he's Alexei's nephew? Protection, Elena explained, finally speaking with clarity. Galkin wanted Alexei's keys, yes. But Galkin was obsessed with legacy. He had me working with the digital currency ledgers. He wanted me to create a safe path for his fortune. She took a shaky breath. I was pregnant. Galkin told me he would take the child and raise him as his heir, a digital genius, if I didn't comply. The only way to save Dimitri was to steal the keys, give Gorkin's enemies leverage, and disappear. She continued, the story tumbling out now that the secret was exposed. Alexei helped me fake the sterilization records. He had a friend smuggle Dimitri to Milan, under the care of a trusted nanny. The money I send? That's for Dimitri's survival. Dante listened, folding his arms. The motive was clear, motherhood. But the story still had holes. The 5 million isn't just for the keys, Elena. It's too low, Dante stated. Gorkin's fortune is worth 300 million. They want something else. Something about the Ferraro family. Elena shook her head frantically. I don't know. I swear. I only knew Galkin wanted me to work on the books and then disappear. I only know that they found me because I started taking too many shifts here. Dante moved back to the office, Elena following him. He slammed his fist on the desk, not in anger at her, but in frustration at the complex web. Rico, I need eyes on the industrial zone now, Dante barked into the phone. I need to know exactly who is running the show for the Ferraro family. This isn't just about money. Rico's voice crackled through the secure line. Dante, it's not just a surveillance team. The Ferraros have moved a specialist crew, their Pulitor, the cleaner. They are not bringing Alexei back alive. Dante looked at Elena. Her eyes mirrored his own grim realization. If Alexei died, the keys were still safe with Elena, but the pressure would immediately shift to Dimitri. Dante activated his deep background search. He didn't use his current system. He used the encrypted, hidden system he'd built 10 years ago, the one that had access to Gorkin's pre-fall network. He typed in Elena's real name, Elena Volkov. He filtered for all activities 2 years ago, specifically focusing on the weeks before Gorkin's operation was dismantled. The screen flashed red. Dante saw the files. Not finance ledgers, but forensic video and audio logs. The night Galkin fell, Dante muttered, reviewing the footage. He was meeting with the Ferraro underboss, Vincenzo. They were making a deal on the northern docks. Elena leaned forward, her breath catching in her throat. I was there. Galkin had me running logistics. I was in the small office nearby, managing the manifest for the trucks. The video footage was grainy, but the audio was clear. A loud, angry Italian argument. The product is spoiled. You promised purity, Galkin. This is a betrayal. Galkin, it was a shipment problem, Vincenzo. We adjust the price. We still have a deal. The argument escalated into shouting. Then, a sickening sound. A single shot. Dante and Elena watched the screen together. Vincenzo, the Ferraro underboss, was standing over a body. It wasn't Galkin. It was a lower-level dock worker who had tried to intervene. Vincenzo took a cloth and wiped his fingerprints from the gun. He's dead, Elena whispered, her body trembling again. Vincenzo Ferraro executed an unarmed man in cold blood over a spoiled shipment. Dante froze the frame on Vincenzo's face. He was smiling. A brutal, casual smile. Dante understood everything now. The 5 million wasn't ransom. It was hush money. You didn't just steal the keys, Elena. You witnessed a murder, Dante concluded. You saw Vincenzo Ferraro commit a capital crime. They don't want the keys anymore. They want your silence. They want to make sure you can never testify. She escaped that night. She changed her name. She started working at this quiet, luxurious seaside restaurant. She had no idea she had walked directly onto the territory of the biggest crime family on the coast, the Volpe Syndicate, run by Dante. And she had taken shelter directly under the nose of the man who owned it all. Dante checked the external surveillance feed for the restaurant. He had eyes everywhere. He saw 2 men, not the accountant, loitering across the street, pretending to be tourists. They were Ferraro family lookouts. They had been there for 3 days. They are watching you, Elena, Dante stated. They know you're the witness. But they think you are my woman. Elena frowned. What are you talking about? I come here every night, Dante explained, his voice low. I sit at the same table. I watch you exclusively. I pay your manager extra to keep you on shift. They don't see a customer. They see a mafia boss courting his chosen liability. They see me staking my claim. Elena stared at the black wolf tattoo barely hidden by his jacket. They think you are my boyfriend. Worse, Dante corrected her. They think you are my leverage. They think they can take you, or someone you care about, and use you to force me out of the northern docks they want. The gravity of the situation hit Elena harder than the wine spill. She hadn't just been hiding. She had been operating on the enemy's assumption, which made her doubly valuable. Dante looked at her, his expression grim. They believe you are the fastest way to get to me, Elena. And they are about to try and prove it. Rico called back, his voice urgent. Boss, we have confirmation. They moved Alexei again. The warehouse is empty. We are getting a trace on the transport now. Dante felt the familiar, cold surge of adrenaline. Ferraro was fast. They were reacting to the accountant's failure. Trace the transport, Rico. Where are they going? Rico paused. The silence on the line felt heavy. Dante, Rico said finally, his voice a tight whisper. The transport isn't moving toward the coast. It's moving north. Past Florence. Directly to Milan. Elena's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream. Dante didn't need to ask why. They had taken Alexei to the only place Elena cared about. The Ferraro family didn't want the keys or the witness anymore. They wanted the final, ultimate leverage. They wanted the child. Dante looked at Elena, who was paralyzed by pure terror. Dimitri, she choked out. My son. Dante moved to the wall, pulling a tactical map from the hidden compartment. He needed to be in Milan in less than 3 hours. The Ferraro family just made the biggest mistake of their lives, Dante said, pulling off his elegant jacket. His demeanor changed completely. The quiet customer was gone. The dangerous predator was fully unleashed. They believe they have leverage on me because they think you are my woman, Dante snarled, checking his weapon. We are going to give them exactly what they expect. Elena looked at the man who had pretended to be a customer for weeks, the man who was now strapping a holster to his side. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice tight with terror and desperation. Dante met her gaze, his eyes burning with controlled rage. We are going to Milan, Dante stated, his smile dangerous. And we are going to tell the Ferraro family that you are not just my woman, Elena. You are the future of the Volpe syndicate. We are going to start a war. Dante was calm, but his mind was racing at a terrifying speed. He was pulling the emergency briefcase out from the floor of his office, the one that held 300 rounds, 2 automatic pistols, and €500,000 in clean currency. Elena was right behind him. She looked small and utterly defeated. The reality of her son, Dimitri, being used as bait by the Ferraro family had stripped away the Sofia Rossi facade completely. She was just a mother facing an impossible choice. We can't drive to Milan, it takes too long, Dante explained, his voice flat as he checked the pistol's weight. Rico is arranging a private flight from the Salerno airfield. We have 90 minutes to get there. Elena didn't answer. She was frantically texting the only secure number she had left, the number for Maria, Dimitri's caretaker. She was trying to confirm that the boy was still safe, still at the small, unmarked apartment. The reply didn't come. Only silence. Panic surged through Elena, sharp and blinding. She tried again. No connection. The Ferraro family wasn't just moving fast, they were cutting off all communication. I need a minute, Elena pleaded, her chest heaving. I need to breathe. Dante knew this move. She wasn't just asking for air. She was looking for a place to be alone, a place to hide her moment of weakness. He nodded once, sharply. Outside. Now. Elena rushed out the back office door and into the narrow, damp alleyway behind the restaurant. It smelled of sea salt and olive oil. She leaned against the cold stone wall, pulling out the cheap, disposable burner phone Galkin had given her years ago. It was the only line of last resort. She dialed the number. It connected. The voice that answered was Maria's, Dimitri's nanny. But it was raw with terror. Maria was speaking a local, desperate Italian dialect. The words rushed and impossible to parse unless you were listening for distress. Sono chi? Maria choked out. They are here. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. It was a physical punch. She clamped her hand over her mouth to stop the scream. Kai sono? Elena demanded, whispering into the phone. Who are they? Maria described them, 2 men in dark suits, driving a black sedan. They hadn't touched the boy yet. They were asking questions about the woman who paid the rent. They showed Maria a picture. Hanno la tua foto. Maria cried. They have your picture. The realization hit Elena like ice water. They had tracked the money trail. They had found Dimitri. The time for running was over. The time for hiding was finished. The enemy was closing in on the only thing she truly cared about. I can't run forever, Maria. Elena's control snapped. She slid down the wall, sinking onto the wet cobblestones. Tears streamed down her face, uncontrolled and violent. She felt the heavy, suffocating weight of 3 years of lies and fear crash down on her. The sobbing was silent, deep, and absolutely desperate. Her entire body trembled, shaking with pure, paralyzing helplessness. Dante hadn't left. He was standing just inside the doorway, hidden in the shadows, listening. He didn't need to understand every word of the Italian. He heard the tremor in Maria's voice. He heard the deep, animal despair in Elena's reply. He heard the keywords, here, photo, mother. He knew exactly what had happened. Ferraro's main crew hadn't gone to Milan. Ferraro's advance team was already in Milan. And they were moving on Dimitri right now. Dante's calm vanished. His eyes narrowed, focused on the immediate, internal threat. He stepped out of the shadow. Elena didn't notice him. She was lost in her grief. Dante didn't speak to her. He spoke into the cufflink microphone, the one connecting him directly to Rico. His voice was low, flat, and chilling. Rico, Dante ordered, simple and final. Code Delta. Lock the doors. Nobody leaves the premises. Rico didn't ask questions. He didn't hesitate. From the front of the restaurant, they heard a heavy, sickening metallic thud chunk. The main dining room instantly turned into a vault. The massive steel doors, usually hidden behind the velvet curtains, had slammed shut. The exterior windows, which looked out onto the seaside street, dropped their reinforced shutters. The elegant La Stella Nascosta was now a bunker. The noise was deafening. It stopped Elena's weeping instantly. What was that? She gasped, scrambling to her feet, her eyes wide with fresh fear. Dante, what did you do? Dante walked toward her. He picked up the cheap burner phone she had dropped and tossed it into the dumpster without looking. I just bought us some time, Dante said, his voice quiet against the heavy silence the lockdown had created. He was no longer the polite customer. He was the man who owned the city. He reached out and gripped her arm gently, but firmly. Her skin felt icy beneath his fingers. Listen to me, Elena, he commanded, pulling her back toward the light of the kitchen. You're in my territory. Nobody touches you here. Elena shook her head, confusion warring with terror. But they're in Milan. They are at Maria's apartment. Locking the restaurant won't help Dimitri. Dante stopped, turning her to face him. He looked deep into her desperate, tear-filled eyes. You're thinking too small, Elena, Dante stated, his voice gaining the hard, unbreakable quality of steel. You think this is just a building. It's not. This entire seaside, this entire stretch of docks, every road from here to the airfield, it is all Volpe property. The minute Ferraro's men set foot here, they are on my clock. She still didn't understand the depth of his power. She only understood the immediate, physical danger. They know I'm here. They're coming to the restaurant now. Elena insisted, pointing uselessly at the massive steel doors. We just trapped ourselves. Dante shook his head slowly. The faint, cold smile of a man who held all the cards returned. The lockdown isn't for us, Elena, Dante clarified, pulling her through the kitchen and into the back office. The reinforced door to the office was now the only open exit. It's for them. He pointed to a small, encrypted monitor on his desk. The feed showed the alleyway. Rico knew the exact location of Ferraro's surveillance team, Dante explained. They had 2 lookouts across the street, watching you. They were waiting for you to leave so they could tail you, or grab you. The monitor showed two dark shapes desperately trying to scramble into a black sedan across the street, but the lockdown had been too fast. The street was now blocked by two enormous, unmarked Volpe trucks that had materialized out of nowhere. Rico didn't lock us in, Dante concluded, his eyes burning with controlled fury. He just locked two of Ferraro's men out there. And they just realized they are trapped. Dante handed Elena the gun he had been holding. It was small, silver, and designed for fast action. We have 5 minutes before Ferraro realizes his assets are compromised, Dante instructed. We are moving to the airfield. Rico has the transport ready. Elena stared at the silver pistol in her hand. Then she looked at the monitor showing the two panicked Ferraro men trapped on the street. The lockdown wasn't an accident, it was a tactical weapon. Dante opened the side door to the office, revealing a narrow, stone staircase that led down into darkness. The Ferraros have men inside the restaurant, Dante, Elena stated, suddenly remembering the pastry chef, Stefano, from their earlier confrontation. She finally understood the full, terrifying scope of the threat. They don't need the front door. They're already in the kitchen. Dante stopped. He knew she was right. His surveillance had only focused on the outside. Who? He demanded. Stefano. The pastry chef. He moved too quickly when the wine spilled, Elena said, her voice shaking but steady now. She was no longer crying. The fear had been replaced by a fierce, protective focus on her son. Dante pushed her down the dark stairs. Go. Move. Don't stop for anything. He turned back, his gun finally drawn. He didn't need the surveillance feed to know what was happening. Stefano, the pastry chef, stepped into the light of the kitchen. He wasn't holding a whisk. He was holding a silent, silver blade. Signor Volpe, Stefano sneered. Vincenzo Ferraro sends his regards. He said you look very handsome in silk, but he prefers you dead. Dante smiled the cold, dangerous smile of the Volpe wolf. Stefano, Dante said, checking the dark tunnel Elena had just disappeared into. You just entered the wrong kitchen. My dessert is violence. The pastry chef didn't lunge. He pulled his phone and showed Dante a live video feed. It wasn't a video of Dimitri in Milan. It was a feed of Alexei Volkov, Elena's brother, tied to a chair. But Alexei wasn't in Florence or a warehouse. He was in the basement of this very restaurant. The basement Dante Volpe thought only he controlled. We brought the brother to you, boss, Stefano whispered. Now, give us the girl, or watch your territory become a morgue. Dante felt a cold fury, not because of the threat, but because of the deception. The basement of his own restaurant. He knew Stefano was stalling. Elena had to be moved, and Alexei had to be freed. You have 1 second, Stefano, Dante warned, his pistol steady. Tell me where the entrance is, or I blow you back to Naples. Stefano, the pastry chef, smiled, holding his knife casually. The entrance, boss? It's through the old walk-in freezer. But you need the voice code. And Vincenzo Ferraro has that. Dante didn't wait. He fired 3 quick shots, not at Stefano, but at the light switch above his head. The kitchen plunged into immediate darkness. Elena screamed, a short, sharp sound of pure shock. Dante grabbed her hand, pulling her back toward the stone stairs that led to the secret tunnel. Down. Move. Dante commanded. Stefano shouted, his voice echoing in the dark kitchen. The girl gets it first, boss. Dante heard the sound of steel scraping on stone. Stefano was coming, following the sound of their feet. They tumbled down the dark stairs, Dante firing 2 more warning shots behind them, forcing Stefano to pause. They reached a narrow, damp tunnel. It was Dante's emergency escape route, leading away from the coast toward the private airfield. Keep running. Don't look back. Dante yelled over his shoulder. Elena, despite her terror, was surprisingly fast. She moved with the fluid, trained motion of someone who had practiced running in the dark many times. They burst out of the tunnel and into a small, dilapidated boathouse 200 meters down the beach. Rico was there, already waiting with the twin-engine Cessna warmed up on the makeshift tarmac. Go, go, go. Rico urged, pushing them toward the plane. Dante didn't move. He stopped at the entrance of the boathouse, looking back at the dark restaurant. Alexei is in the basement. They used the old freezer entrance, Dante explained, catching his breath. Ferraro knows the building better than I do. He's been planning this for months. Rico's face hardened. You're not going back in, Dante. We have the girl. That's the key. We move now. No, Dante insisted. He looked at Elena. I need the real story. Now. What is the biggest lie? Why does Ferraro need you dead so badly that they risked a war on my property? Elena was shaking, clinging to the small silver gun he'd given her. She looked from the plane to Dante. She knew she had run out of time for half-truths. The waitress, the refugee, the sister saving her brother. It's all true, Dante, Elena admitted, her eyes burning with intensity. But it's not the biggest part of the truth. Significant event every 2 to 3 paragraphs. She took a deep breath, fighting to keep her voice steady. I wasn't a waitress, she confessed. And I wasn't just working the ledgers for Galkin. I was a linguistics and cyberforensics student at the University of Rome. I was brilliant, Dante. I specialized in breaking down encrypted criminal communication. It was my job to find the gaps in Galkin's enemies. Dante stared at her. A waitress was a liability. A cyberforensics expert was a weapon. When Galkin was making the final deal with Vincenzo Ferraro on the docks 2 years ago, I wasn't just managing the manifest, Elena continued, the words now coming out in a feast torrent. I was running an advanced decryption program on Galkin's internal comms, checking for backdoors. And you found one, Dante guessed, his voice low. Yes. But it wasn't Galkin's enemies trying to double-cross him. It was Ferraro. I intercepted a coded message from Vincenzo Ferraro to his team. A complex linguistic pattern, disguised as a logistics update. Elena's eyes were wide with the memory. The message was about a multi-million-dollar operation Ferraro was running completely outside of his family's knowledge. It was pure, black market arms dealing, using old military codes. If that operation was exposed, Vincenzo Ferraro wouldn't just be disgraced. He would be dead. Dante finally understood the true depth of the threat. Elena didn't just witness a murder. She held the encrypted evidence of a secret, treasonous arms deal that could collapse the Ferraro syndicate and destroy Vincenzo's personal reputation. Where is the message, Elena? Dante demanded. It's tied to the crypto keys, she explained quickly. Alexei, he's a brilliant coder, but not a linguist. He secured the keys and the message onto one highly encrypted drive. He's the only one who knows the password. But you know the linguistic patterns, Dante realized. Yes. I can confirm the pattern. If they get the drive, they get the money. If they get me, they get the confirmation that the message is real. Dante looked back at the darkening restaurant. Stefano would be calling for backup now. Ferraro was on the move. Why did you choose this restaurant? Dante asked, the final, crucial question. Why here? Out of all the places in Europe. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. When I went into hiding, Galkin's network helped me create the fake identity. They promised me protection. But then, I discovered the final, mind-blowing truth. She leaned close to Dante, her breath hitching. The person who helped Galkin manage the escape, the person who approved my fake passport and my safe drop point here in Sorrento, it wasn't Galkin. It was a high-ranking official inside the local police force. Dante's eyes narrowed. The police. The corruption ran deeper than he thought. They didn't approve your escape to save you, Elena, Dante stated, his mind connecting the pieces. No, she confirmed, tears welling up again. They sent me here to get me killed. The police official was working for Vincenzo Ferraro all along. This restaurant, this safe job, was a death trap. I was meant to survive just long enough for Ferraro to decide how to use my testimony against Galkin, and then, I was supposed to be silently eliminated. She looked up at Dante, the wolf boss. I had no idea who you were. I just took the first safe job I found. I took shelter right inside the very organization that was meant to crush the Ferraros. Without knowing it, I walked straight into your protection. Dante felt a strange mix of profound relief and raging anger. Relief that his instincts about her were correct, she wasn't a common thief. Anger that he had let Ferraro set up a hit inside his own territory. The engine of the Cessna roared, ready for takeoff. Dante, we have to go now. Rico shouted from the cockpit. Air traffic is getting complicated. Ferraro has jammed the local comms. Dante took Elena's face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. You are not going to be eliminated, Dante promised, his voice heavy with finality. You are the evidence I need to destroy Vincenzo Ferraro forever. And I will not let them touch your son. He pushed her toward the plane. Get on the plane. Fly with Rico to the secure location. I am going back for Alexei. Elena grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. No. It's my brother, I'm going back with you. Dante shook his head. You are the only person who knows the codes and the patterns. If we go back together, we both die. You must live for Dimitri. He ripped off his watch, a heavy, expensive Swiss chronograph. Take this, Dante ordered, pressing the watch into her hand. It's rigged with a satellite beacon. If I stop moving, if I stop communicating, you know I'm dead. If I'm dead, you take the keys and run as far as you can. Elena didn't move. She stared at the watch in her hand. Dante, why are you doing this? She whispered, her voice breaking. You don't even know me. Dante paused. He met her gaze, his eyes softening slightly. He had started this simply because she was a mystery. Now, it was about justice, control, and a fierce, unexpected attachment to a brilliant woman running for her son. I know enough, Dante said simply. He turned and ran back toward the dark, locked restaurant. Elena stood alone, holding the heavy watch, watching the Mafia boss disappear into the dark toward a fight he didn't have to take. She looked at Rico, who was waiting for her in the Cessna. He told you to go to a secure location, Rico said. Elena shook her head. She looked down at the watch in her hand. If I stop moving, if I stop communicating, you know I'm dead. She threw the watch onto the pilot seat and ran after Dante. We're not going to the secure location, Rico, Elena shouted, sprinting toward the dark, locked bunker. We're going to Milan. I know where the keys are. And I'm going to trade myself for my son. Elena didn't waste time running back toward the restaurant. She sprinted through the darkness, the heavy sound of the Cessna's engines fading behind her. She knew Dante was facing Stefano and that the basement entrance was through the freezer. She burst into the dark kitchen. The air was thick with the smell of spilled wine and adrenaline. Dante, she hissed. He was standing still, gun raised, facing the dark outline of the pastry chef. Stefano was still holding his phone, the chilling image of Alexei Volkov on the screen. You came back, Dante muttered, not looking away from the threat. He's my brother, Elena snapped. And you're going to need help finding that freezer door in the dark. Stefano laughed, a wet, ugly sound. The little spy is devoted. Too late. My backup is already on the coast road. And the code is voice-activated. You can't get in. Dante took a step toward Stefano. Tell me the code, or I put you through the wall. It's not a number, boss. It's a woman's name. Stefano spat the words out. The name of the woman you failed to protect. Elena froze. The mention of a woman's name, coupled with the mention of Dante's past failure, hit her harder than any bullet. Dante didn't flinch. He fired one shot, not at Stefano, but at the screen of the phone, shattering the image of Alexei into digital fragments. Now you have nothing to trade, Dante stated. Elena, the freezer door. Find the thermal latch. Elena ignored the question of the woman. She knew the kitchen layout better than Dante. She felt along the cold stainless steel walls. Here, she shouted, finding the hidden release mechanism. Dante kept his gun trained on Stefano. Move, Elena. She fumbled with the latch. She had to tell him. Now. Before the truth died with them in this locked box. Dante, listen to me. Elena said quickly, her voice a rush of desperate breath. Dimitri is not my son. He is not Alexei's nephew. That was my biggest lie. Dante paused. The revelation was sudden and confusing. What? The boy in the photo, the pendant, the money transfers, it's not for me to protect my child, Elena confessed, her fingers flying over the keypad on the thermal latch. It was for me to keep a promise. Stefano lunged forward in the sudden distraction. Dante fired instinctively, the shot hitting the floor near Stefano's feet. The pastry chef screamed, momentarily retreating into the dark. "Who is he, Elena?" Dante demanded, his voice a low roar of frustration and danger. The thermal latch clicked. The heavy freezer door groaned open, revealing a wall of frozen meat and another darkened opening at the back. Elena pulled Dante inside the cold space. The smell of raw meat and ice filled the air. She pulled the door shut behind them. "His mother's name was Ilara," Elena whispered, the name dropping like a stone. "Ilara Volpe." Dante went utterly still. The name hit him like a physical blow. He staggered back against a shelf of hanging carcasses. "Ilara," Dante repeated, the name barely audible. He looked shattered. Ilara Volpe was his younger cousin. More than a cousin, she was the only family he truly trusted, the only one who didn't fear his power. She had vanished 2 years ago, right when Gorkin's empire collapsed. Dante had spent a year hunting for her body, believing Galkin had used her to spite him. He had convinced himself she was dead. "You knew her," Dante stated, his voice heavy with disbelief and sudden, fierce hope. "We were roommates in Rome, before Galkin recruited us," Elena revealed. She was the linguist. I was the programmer. We worked together. When Galkin realized Ferraro and the corrupt police were closing in, Ilara knew she couldn't trust anyone. Elena touched the silver pendant hidden beneath her uniform. "This isn't just jewelry. It's a tiny, satellite-encrypted storage device. It holds the original encryption keys and the decoded audio of Vincenzo Ferraro's murder plot." Dante's hand shot out, grabbing her shoulder. He didn't hurt her, but his grip was absolute. "Dimitri is her son?" Dante asked, the question laced with the desperate need for connection. "Yes," Elena confirmed, meeting his gaze. "He's yours, Dante. Your family. The last piece of Ilara left in the world. The stakes are shattered. It's now personal." Dante's mind reeled. He had been watching Dimitri's mother's best friend, protecting his own flesh and blood, a child he thought was just a distant liability. His entire empire, his massive power, had been focused on vengeance for a dead woman, while the woman was alive, and her son was being used as leverage by his rivals. The money in Milan, Dante realized, pulling the pieces together. It wasn't for Dimitri's caretaker. It was for Ilara. "No," Elena contradicted him. "The money is for Dimitri's nanny. But Ilara isn't dead, Dante. She's hiding." This was the final, devastating twist. After we stole the data and the keys, Ilara realized that Ferraro's cop contact was too close. She knew they would hunt Dimitri first, Elena explained, her voice quick and breathless. "She didn't trust me to run with a child. She gave me the keys, the pendant, the boy, and my new identity. She told me to disappear here, in Sorrento, and wait." "Wait for what?" Dante demanded. "Wait for Ferraro to reveal his hand," Elena said. She knew they would track the money trail eventually. So, Ilara surrendered herself to the one person she knew Ferraro would never look for. Dante felt a terrifying premonition. He knew exactly where the ultimate leverage was. "Where is Ilara, Elena?" he whispered, his heart racing, realizing the devastating truth. Elena didn't answer right away. She pointed past the rows of frozen meat, toward the dark entrance into the basement. When Ilara Volpe surrendered herself 2 years ago, she did it to protect her son and the keys, Elena stated, her eyes pleading for Dante to understand the sacrifice. "She is being held, not by Ferraro, but by the same corrupt police official who orchestrated our escape here." The realization was explosive. Ilara was not bait for Dante. She was leverage on the police themselves, held by an official who was secretly working for Ferraro. Dante suddenly understood why Ferraro was so confident. He had the keys to the entire city, the police force, the witness, and Dante's family. A loud metallic bang echoed from the kitchen. Stefano and his backup had blown the lock on the freezer door. "They were coming. We have to move." Rico's voice crackled, faint but urgent, from the earpiece Dante hadn't realized was still active. "Ferraro's backup is blocking the coastal road. You're trapped." Dante pushed the freezer door open a crack, looking out into the dark kitchen. He could see 2 silhouettes moving toward them, flashlights cutting through the blackness. He looked at Elena, his cousin's best friend, the keeper of his family's last secret. "The basement entrance is behind the meat," Dante commanded, pointing to the dark tunnel. We have to get Alexei and get out of the city. We're not going to Milan. We're going to the police precinct. Elena's face was pale but determined. She nodded, understanding the stakes. We have to save them all, Dante, she stated, clutching the silver pendant. Alexei, Dimitri, and Ilara. Dante reached out and touched the pendant, the small, hidden repository of all his secrets and his family's survival. No, Elena, Dante stated, his voice ringing with absolute authority. He activated the hidden trigger on the pendant. The small light on its side turned green. The police official is nothing, Dante snarled, pulling her into the hidden basement entrance. Vincenzo Ferraro is the architect of this trap. And I just activated the encryption keys. We're not waiting for them to move. We're going to hit Ferraro where he lives, tonight.